Welcome to Tucker Carlson. Today we had a conversation with Nigel Farage that was so interesting we kept it going. We're going to play the second part for you right now. One thing that always baffled me and still baffles me to this day is the reaction against Brexit and Trump. Both of these are changes that nobody in power expected. They seem too far. Leave the EU? No, I don't, come on. Why would we do that? Donald Trump, we've got Jeb Bush, like that's crazy. Then both these things happen and nobody pauses for even a moment to try to understand why they happened. In other words, like if your daughter came home from school and said, I'm changing my last name and I'm getting a face tattoo, of course you'd be against that, but you would also ask yourself, like, you'd say to your wife, what did we do wrong? Like maybe we're implicated in this.
You see, when you have a sense of moral superiority, and this is part of what goes wrong by not teaching critical thinking at schools and universities, but when you have a set of people who believe they are morally superior to the other side of the argument because they're better people, and this is what the modern liberal left genuinely believe, they actually believe that they are better people. So they can't find a rational explanation for why the Brexit vote happened, for why the man from The Apprentice, got into the White House. They can't find a rational explanation. Therefore, they've been looking for irrational ones. The Russia hoax was perfect for them.
Yes, it was.
Absolutely perfect for them. And that played out on both sides of the pond. Oh, we had Hillary saying Nigel Farage is funded by the Kremlin. I mean, I should have sued her for libel, really, But yeah, so and that's what they've been looking for. So, it's either the Russians that did it. It's either Cambridge Analytica, and we somehow mesmerised the population. And they've been chasing. Trying to find the end of these rainbows.
But don't normal people
they don't understand
always ask, like, maybe I played a role in this? If your kids hate you, maybe you ask, like, was I a good father?
No.
A normal person would always ask that.
No. Their sense of moral superiority is such that they can't even contemplate that.
That they're responsible in any way for the rejection of their own rules.
Yeah, no. I mean, if you were teaching young people genuine critical thinking, they would understand what the argument for socialism was. And they could write an essay. Even though they're conservative, you and I could write an essay
for sure
on what socialism is
easily
and why it could be a great thing. And equally, a grown-up socialist who believes in democracy could write an article on free market economics.
Yes.
And why that's the way forward.
Of course.
We understand why other people have different points of view.
Yes.
We disagree with them, we debate with them, but we don't hate them. We're quite happy to have a coffee with them. That's how it should have been.
I don't assume they're funded by Putin because they disagree with me.
No. And yet, we've now got this breed of liberal who have come through the university system, who don't even understand any concept, of what critical thinking is. And they're being taught, our kids right now are being taught that one side of the argument is moral and virtuous, and if you believe in the other side, you're virtually a neo-Nazi. I mean, this is what we're doing to our younger generation. This is part of where the fight back is so very, very important. So, they haven't. I mean, in the European Union, in Brussels, where I did battle with them for 20 years as the sort of, I was like the pantomime villain, really. I mean, I had most marvellous fun. I mean, I get up to speak and they'd all start booing, and if they thought that was going to put me off, no, it just encouraged me. I wound them up even more. But never for one moment have they considered, with the Brexit vote, maybe we're headed in the wrong direction. Maybe we've got this wrong. And just like the Soviet communists that went before them, when communism was failing, the conclusion in Moscow was, we haven't had enough communism.
Exactly.
And the conclusion...
Beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah, that's right. And that's exactly where it is with the globalists, and with the Davos crowd, and with all of these people. And they simply still haven't got it into their head what happened in 16, and they don't understand that in 100 years' time, people will read history books about how 2016 was the beginning of a massive fundamental shift and change in our countries, and they'll call it populism, or they'll call it whatever they call it. It doesn't matter what they call it, but they still haven't recognised that what triggered those responses in 2016 is going to lead to greater and more fundamental change in the next years.
So what is going to happen to the EU?
Well, it can't survive. I mean, I mean, why should it survive? I mean, is it even desirable that it survives? I mean, in America came together with, and we've talked already about the cultural side of the written constitution, the amazing founding fathers, their foresight, their vision, their ability to pick the best, Magna Carta, all of these things that became very important. But it's worth remembering that even forging the American nation cost one of the most ghastly and bloody civil wars that's ever been seen. So even the forging of a country that had a common culture, pretty much a common language, even that was a very difficult thing to do. A Greek and a German, they may live on the same landmass, but they are entirely different people.
Yes, they are.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, as the French used to say, vive la différence.
Of course.
And I actually think, Tucker, that I'm the true pro-European, because I want a Europe of individual countries, individually run.
I miss the lira, the franc, the drachma.
Yes, I mean, if I cross 21 miles to Paris, I want to see somebody wearing a beret, smoking a Gauloise. There's no point going otherwise.
A baguette-free France is not worth visiting.
Absolutely. And so I want to see a Europe of flourishing individual languages and cultures and cheeses and wines and whatever it may be. And here's the problem. The problem is that in 1870, the Germans crossed the Rhine and invade France. And in 1914, the Germans go over the Rhine into Luxembourg to begin with, and then France. And in 1940, the Germans cross the Rhine.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Well, I could tell you a joke about the restaurateur. I did say to a restaurateur in Strasbourg once, do you get many Germans here? He said, well, they pop by once every 20 years or so. 3 times in 70 years, the Germans invade France. Three times in the lifespan of an ordinary man or woman.
It's a lot, yeah.
It's one heck of a lot. And so, in 1945, the great minds sat down and thought, how do we stop the Germans from invading again? But that's basically what it was.
Yeah.
And number one, they didn't need to do it, because in 1945 Germany was so comprehensively smashed to the ground.
Yes.
And the ideology
and
that went
partitioned,
with it,
by the way.
Well, in the most horrendous way.
Yes.
Horrendous way. I mean, the truth of it is the war ended in 1989 for tens of millions of people in Eastern Europe. So number one, the European Union was the solution to a problem that didn't actually exist anymore. And number two, it was based on a fundamental misunderstanding. One of the reasons the globalists hate what they call us, the nationalists, is they pursue this narrative that nationalism leads to war, right?
Yes.
Because you have nation states, they finish up encroaching upon each other's territory, and that leads to wars that can become global conflagrations. They're wrong. It isn't the existence of nation state that leads to war. It's the absence of democracy in one or more of those member states that leads to war. If you have functioning democracies, right, you will not have war. No mature, functioning democracy in the world has ever gone to war with another mature, functioning democracy. It's a point I've made round the universities for the last 30 years, wherever I go. So provided we have a Europe of functioning democratic nation states, they can trade together, they can cooperate together, they can do deals with each other on cross-border crime, migration, many other things. They can work as neighbours, living in the same street for the common good, but their own house and their own bank account are their own, and that's the Europe that I'm fighting for. And the Europe where you say to everybody, actually, you give all this up. You give up the power of your central bank. You give up the ability to set corporation tax rates. You give up the ability to run your own currency. You give up the ability of your own Supreme Court being supreme. You give all this up to a higher order that is based in Brussels and run by people that you can never vote for and you can never remove It's for the birds. It isn't going to work. Brexit is the first brick out of the wall. Who's next? I don't know. Whether it's going to be a Denmark, whether it's going to be an Italy, whether it's going to be a Hungary culturally, I don't know. What I do know is there is an irrevocable split from the north to south in Europe. The euro has been a catastrophe for the Mediterranean, and I mean a catastrophe.
I've noticed.
For Greece, Italy, it's been a catastrophe.
I mean, the irony is they all seem like German colonies again.
Well, I mean, this is yeah. I mean, there's an awful lot of talk in Athens these days about the Germans, and I can't share with you on this programme. And then the other split you've got is the uber liberal West, compared to the strong Roman Catholic.
Yes.
Poland, Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, social attitudes that are absolutely miles and miles apart. So you've got these two fundamental east-west and south and north-south splits occurring within it. And this, of course, is something that the Clintons and Biden and the CNN and the New York Times look upon with horror. Because to them, the EU was the pin-up boy. The EU was the pin-up boy for where they wanted the world to go. And if Hillary had won in 2016, she was on record as having said on Wall Street on more than one occasion she wanted America to join a hemispheric common market. She wanted America to align with European Union single market rules. That's where the globalists wanted to go, and that's why 16 was so important in terms of the fight back on both sides of the pond. And as I say, I still believe the Biden administration is the aberration, not the other way around.
I mean, it's going to be pretty ugly, ultimately, it does seem to me, when it breaks apart. I mean,
probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, let's hope it's not. I mean, the joyous thing about Brexit, Tucker, was, my supporters, my direct personal supporters, millions of them, never ever use violence of any kind at all. I wouldn't even tolerate, when our people were out, I wouldn't even tolerate graffiti or litter dropping. I mean, anybody that behaved in my name in a disrespectful way would be kicked out, expelled from the organisation, and told never to come back. We were an utterly peaceful, non-violent political revolution.
Good for you.
I hope and pray that the breakup of the European Union is the same.
I certainly hope so too. The longer these things endure, no empire breaks apart easily. So here's your final speech to the European Parliament, January 2020.
Yeah.
We thought our viewers might like to see it. Here it is.
So this is it, the final chapter, the end of the road. A 47-year political experiment of this power. And I can promise you, both in UKIP and indeed in the Brexit Party, we love Europe. We just hate the European Union. It's as simple as that. I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye. And we'll look forward in the future to working with you as sovereign.
If you disobey the rules, you get cut off. Could we please remove the flags?
Well, she's a lot of fun. Who is that woman?
Sour face.
Oh, my God.
Irish MEP. She's now a commissioner. She's now a European commissioner.
Where's she from?
She's from Ireland. She's now a European commissioner in charge of financial markets and services. And what was interesting there was...
Is she as humorless in person as she is on...
Oh, worse. What was funny, what riled her, were the flags. They don't want national flags. They want to abolish national flags and replace them with a new
So
European
these people
flag.
are hard ideologues then?
Oh yeah. But they only represent a small percentage of the overall population. But because they've been supported by the big corporates, because they've been supported by big mainstream media, they've held the status quo. They've managed to hold the sway for decades and decades and decades. And now, with Brexit, the fight back is on. But she may have cut the microphone off for the last couple of seconds, but gosh, that was fun.
Well, I mean, the fact that she did cut the microphone off just tells you everything about how loathsome these people are. I cannot believe they controlled England.
And I'd been there 21 years. I'd, for 15 years, led groups in the Parliament, be one of the senior figures. I'd sat on the front row. I'd sat next to the Commission President for years. I've been a very senior figure, the best-known MEP in the world. I mean, Tucker, I've done more for their PR than anyone that's ever been there before. Now, perhaps not in a way that they'd intended originally. And just the sort of disrespect of treating me that way in the closing seconds said it all. But as I said to you earlier in this conversation, they believe they have a moral superiority over us. They hate us. They loathe us for what we believe. And they think because of what we believe, we are terrible people. And it manifests itself here with the Trump derangement syndrome,
yes,
and you know, many other things. But
what, I mean, 21 years. How did they treat you when the cameras were off? Who'd you go to dinner with?
Well, this is very interesting. Very interesting. So when I first got there, it was all considered to be a great joke.
Right.
I mean, you know, who are these lunatics? There were three of us. I was just turned 35, so relatively young, really. And I went in there and I was actually quite nervous because I thought, well, I'm going to be with, you know, some of the best educated, finest brains from Britain and around the rest of Europe. And will I be able to hold my own? Will I be able to cope? I had a bit of a confidence thing.
Well, I can imagine.
Going in there, I mean, it didn't take long to work out. They were all pretty hopeless, really. I mean, they might have been good at university, but they weren't very good at getting what people wanted. So a bit of a joke to begin with. And then, I tell you what changed everything. What changed everything was YouTube. Suddenly, in about 06, 07, YouTube comes along. And by 08, you know, by 2008, when the financial crash happened, you know, my speeches in the European Parliament would get picked up by, for example, Zero Hedge in New York,
yes,
and put out to trading desks across the world. And suddenly speeches that I was giving in the European Parliament that might get a tiny little couple of column inches in the Daily Telegraph would suddenly get hundreds of thousands of views or millions of views on YouTube. And it was my understanding of the advent and the growth of social media that allowed me to become from a relatively fringe politician into becoming a major national figure. And so I used that, you know, to absolute maximum benefit.
And what did they think of you?
I remember once the former Belgian Prime Minister, Mr. Verhofstadt, in a speech, said that all that Farage does, all he does when he speaks here, he's not speaking to us. He's speaking to millions of people via YouTube. And I said, yeah, it's a fair cop. I mean, I get it.
And that was an insult?
Yeah, well, I know. So it was social media that really made it. And the hostility really started to build. After Brexit, it became very, very difficult there. After Trump...
Difficult in what way?
Well, after Trump, I remember going in, there was a little coffee bar opposite the European Parliament in Brussels. I used to go in every morning and buy a coffee on the way in. The week after Trump got elected, I walked in, we're not serving you anymore.
Whoa.
Yeah. And more seriously than that, the pub that I'd used for 20 years, a little pub, a one-room, nice little pub, run by a little Irish lad, nice boy, great pub, and I used to go in there after work, you know, and we'd have a beer or two. And he said, I'm sorry, Mr. Farage, but you can't come in anymore. You know, we've been told that if we continue to serve you, we'll lose all our business. So I finished up not being able to get any pubs, any restaurants. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I was persona non grata in the most extraordinary way. The police, the Brussels police, had even been tipped off that if I was to be seen downtown late at night, I was to be taken in. And they'd have found drugs on me, or, you know, something like that would have happened.
This in Belgium?
It was in Belgium.
In modern Belgium?
Yeah, I promise you. I absolutely promise you I was tipped off about that at a very high level in one of the European institutions. So I literally became, when I went to Brussels, I mean, virtually a prisoner, really.
Just sit in your hotel? And...
Well, sit in a private flat, you know, and friends would come round, you cook or whatever you do. It was pretty awful. But you know what? It was a price worth paying.
You are a very cheerful warrior, I have to say. I got to ask my final question, because I've been wondering about this for years. There's a very famous picture of you right after being in a plane crash, looking, you're clearly injured in the picture, and I wish we had it. But you look weirdly unruffled. So tell us about the plane crash and tell us about its effect on you.
When I was young, I had a major road traffic accident. I was hit by a car.
And
I spent 4 months in hospital after that, and I broke one leg incredibly badly, fractured skull. So I had a very tough time as a youngster with that. And then I had cancer after that, which wasn't a barrel of fun either. So I had some very tough health issues early on. And then in 2010, I had the plane crash. I know you've been through.
There it is right there.
Yeah. I'll tell you the funny thing about that.
I cannot believe you were in that plane?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just incredible that we survived.
It is incredible.
Or that I survived. The weird thing about that was, as the plane's out of control and coming in.
So where were you? What was the context? Why were you in that plane?
We were, typical me, doing something ridiculous. Flying a banner, a pro-Brexit, patriotic banner.
And that's in England?
That was in England, in the Midlands of England. And it all went wrong because on pickup, one of the strops, one of the ropes from the banner went over the loop of the plus. So we were doomed.
Those banners are dangerous to tow.
They're very, very. We were doomed and kind of.
Did you know that?
Oh yeah, there was kind of a full 5 minutes. I mean, you've been through a tough incident as well, I know. But you go through a series of emotions. One,
so you're in the plane and you know something's wrong.
Yeah, because the pilot, does a mayday call.
Oh,
that gives you the hint that you're not in the right place, and so then you try and rationalise, what do I do? And he tried to gain height as much as he could to turn round so that we crash at least back on the airstrip as opposed to out in the countryside. So in about 5 minutes, I suppose, I had to think about it. And you think, well, and the initial fear, and then you think, what do I do? Do I text anybody? Do I ring anybody? And I thought, no, that would be awful. Imagine if you died a few minutes later. I mean, you would haunt the person.
That's right.
You would literally haunt the person you texted or rung or whatever. I thought, well, there's no point saying anything because I'm sitting next to this guy and he doesn't want to die any more than I do. So I just sat there in silence. And then towards the end of it, as the plane's out of control and the ground comes rushing up, just that sort of odd resignation.
So you knew you were going down?
Yeah. The odd resignation of thinking, well, this is it. Let's just hope to goodness it's over quickly. It's all you can think.
Yeah.
It's all you can think. It's rather like it's like the young army officer in combat, or if it's going to be today, can it be over quickly?
That's right.
And that's what people do. So I wasn't even scared at the end. I was just resigned to it. And then the banner hits the ground, and from 40 feet the plane goes down, and I remember the nose hitting the ground, the bang, and then I remember it flipping over.
Wait, so you just came straight down?
Yeah,
like
the
that?
last 40 feet was straight down, and then it flipped over on its back, and it almost like happens in slow motion, and then it comes to rest, and you're covered in fuel.
Oh!
And I thought, I could barely breathe. Everything was broken. And I thought, okay, it can never get worse than this. It can never get worse than
You're
this.
You're covered in fuel?
But if this catches fire, nobody will ever know that I survived this crash.
Right, that's
and
right.
I'm sure that happens a lot in these incidents. Anyway, 5 minutes later, a rescue party arrived, unstrapped me.
So you remained in the plane?
I couldn't get out. I didn't have the strength. And I was upside down, and my head was that far from the ground. So I was in quite a bad way, and I couldn't get out.
Were you expecting to catch fire?
But you know what? That was much scarier. The thought that it would catch fire was much scarier than the thought of crashing into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
That was really very, very frightening. So when they came along and sort of asked me whether I was all right, they got a sort of fairly brief Anglo-Saxon strewn reply, which indicated I didn't want to be in there much longer. And they undid me. And the odd thing about that picture you showed of me standing up next to the aeroplane is even though every rib, split sternum, punctured lung, and I was quite badly hurt. But actually, those few moments when I first got out and pulled myself up on the wheel and walked away, even though I was hurt, it was the most elated feeling I've ever been through in my life because I knew I'd survived. That was an amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling. And then the ambulance comes. You get in the ambulance and they rig you up and they say, Mr. Farage, you're going to be okay. And then the adrenaline goes.
Yeah.
Because, the adrenaline reaches its very highest level.
Yes.
If you think the end is coming. And then I felt pretty washed out. But look,
Did the pilot survive?
Sadly, no. Sadly, no. You know what? There's a lot of luck in life. If you think about it, really, from the moment of conception until the end, there's an awful lot of luck in our life.
There really is.
I've had the most incredible amounts of luck in my life. Incredible amounts of luck even to be here. And I've also been incredibly lucky in the sense that I was one of those unusual people that pursued a dream, an impossible dream. A dream where people did literally just laugh at me. And we did it. So I feel pretty content with life, to be honest with you.
You're an amazing person. Nigel Farage, And it becomes more obvious the longer one talks to you. So I'm glad that you were able to spend all this time here. I'm serious. Thank you.
Tucker, thank you.
Nigel Farage, Tucker Carlson today is the name of the show. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Fox Nation. We'll see you every weeknight, 8 p.m. on the Fox News Channel.